Rahkim Sabree. Rahkim is a leader in financial education and empowerment. He is a TED Talk speaker. He's a best-selling author and financial coach, like me. His work has been seen in Black Enterprise, Thrive Global, Yahoo Finance, Enterprise, Authority Magazine, the Grio, and Business Insider. So guys, we're so lucky to have Rahkim here. Show him some love, show him some thumbs up. And I welcome you now, Rahkim. Let me see if I can find your video so I can see you. You can start sharing your video now. There we go. There's my man. Okay, you can come off of mute.
Sorry about that. Good evening.
Perfect. Good evening. Looking sharp.
Thank you.
I'm glad we're able to hang out today and get to know you a little better and just drop some more golden nuggets on people all day long. They've been getting amazing value. And
yeah, I caught the end of the last one. There was definitely some nuggets dropped there.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to go ahead and learn more about you. I know some of your people are here, and that's awesome. The people who aren't familiar with you, they're going to want to know the basics, you know. So let's start with, what do you do, Rahkim? More specifically, how do you work with people? Like, how did you get to the point where you decided, I'm going to be a money coach? Like, how did that come to be? Tell us about the journey that kind of brought you there.
Sure. So I like to start by sharing, my parents were very young, 17 and 18 years old when I was born. We moved to New York when I was very young. And so you can imagine the difficulty that they experienced with navigating the high price point of Westchester County. Definitely relied on the assistance of extended family to help raise me and my siblings. And as I got older and started to realize what it took to run the household financially, there were some aspects to running the household that I like to say aspired to be poor, right? So we had Section 8, we had food stamps, and I thought when I was of age, those were things that I was going to go after. Or those are things that I should aspire to go after. Fast forward a little bit to 2011, I started as a part-time teller working for a large bank. And that really just kind of opened my eyes to the world of personal finance, the world of bank products. I got my hands on the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which was hugely influential in me looking into entrepreneurship. And I wanted to have conversations with my friends, with my family, with everybody really about what it is that I was learning. And I realized in trying to have those conversations that a lot of people didn't know what I was talking about. I was going right over their head. And so, of course, I identified there a need to increase the financial education of those around me and those people that I haven't met yet. So that was 10 years ago, I started this journey. And I've grown quite a bit since then. I've learned quite a bit. I've shared quite a bit. Within the last 2 to 3 years, I started embarking on public speaking. I'm a 2-time author, as you mentioned, getting involved with large publications and really just kind of establishing thought leadership in the realm of financial education and, more importantly, financial empowerment. So I work with all sorts of people because I've seen what that spectrum looks like, right? I've seen people who are experiencing extreme poverty. They're coming into the bank with overdrawn accounts and living paycheck to paycheck. And I've seen people with wealth management moving multiple millions of dollars around, whether that be through wire transfers to other people or you know, within their own financial ecosystem. So I like to think that I have a unique vantage point and being able to relate to the spectrum that exists between massive wealth and what poverty looks like.
Wow, absolutely. And I can see how impactful that would be, because you grow up poor. You're telling me that, you know, well, you're growing up poor, and I know a lot of people who have grown up in the Section 8 community, and you're right. It's almost like an understanding, like, this is what we do. This is how I'm going to do it when I grow up. And when you get this job at the bank, I can just imagine like that big light bulb go off, like, wait, there's more. There's probably people that were coming in the bank that look like you, men of color, women of color, families of color. And you're like, wait, what? They're not on Section 8 because I'm seeing their checking account right now and their savings account, and they've got money. So maybe what I've been believing all this time is not necessarily serving me anymore. I don't have to follow in those footsteps. So congratulations for that, because then you recognize that you need to continue to educate, because like you said, we don't learn this stuff in school. It's not taught. There's a lack of education. But
Absolutely.
going back to when you said financial literacy and empowerment, can you tell us what you mean by those terms when you use them? And I know different people, you know, you can ask 10 people, what does financial literacy mean to them? They're going to have somewhat of a different answer, but I want to see what Rahkim says, what to him financial literacy is and financial empowerment.
Sure. I think the difference between financial literacy and empowerment is the difference between knowing what is possible financially and maybe even executing on some of those strategies, and believing in what is possible for you as an individual. So the biggest example that I can give is like this idea of becoming a millionaire, right? $1 million is a lot of money to a lot of people, but $1 million is also a little bit of money to a lot of people. And so understanding how realistic it is to achieve a millionaire status or multi-millionaire status, and taking that into the context of what is your reality, that's the difference between the literacy and the empowerment. Saying, you know what, this is something that is possible. It's something that's possible for me. Now I'm going to go out and figure out how to make that happen.
Wow, that's really good, guys. Drop in the chat, tell Rahkim what you're learning, what's shifting for you. Is there any ahas going off yet for you guys? Because it is for me. And so yeah, go ahead and do that. But I want to like can we delve a little more deeply into just, let's say, which one do you weigh more? I guess if you had to choose out of financial literacy and empowerment, if I asked you today, just pick one or the other, we can't talk about both of them, which one would you want to dive deeper into?
Absolutely, the empowerment piece. And I'll explain why. I think there's so much information at the ready, right? You can go Google, you can, you know, buy books, you can buy courses, you can shadow people who have exhibited, you know, these disciplines and learn by osmosis. You know, to the point of me working in the bank, right? I learned a lot of things by osmosis, but the empowerment piece, I think, is what holds back a lot of people in not feeling that they are either deserving of wealth or fearful of the responsibility that comes with wealth, or you know, just not knowing what to do with wealth, right? If you win the lottery and you are a multimillionaire tomorrow, how long is that money going to last you? Will you know what to do, who to call, how to line up a team to really help you not only keep your wealth, but grow your wealth? So I think all of that would fall under the realm of empowerment. And really, it's mindset. It's all mindset. It's all discipline. It's all understanding, like I said, what's possible and what's possible for you.
So there is a common theme amongst the speakers, and that mindset piece, guys. So if you're hearing it repeatedly, that's because it's very important. No matter what the speakers are talking on, like their specialty, mindset keeps being this reoccurring theme. So we want to learn more about mindset, because like Rahkim says, you can go online, find all the information, read the blogs, read the books even. But if you have that financial education, so that's what we'll call financial literacy, but you actually haven't executed because you feel like, well, that probably works for other people, but not for me. That's the empowerment piece Rahkim's talking about, is actually having the confidence that you can say, yes, this could work for me, and put it into play for your life, these money strategies. And so that's really important. So what would you say, mindset. How can we start understanding what our mindset is about money?
That's a really good question. I think introspection is key. Looking at the people that are closest to you and figuring out what are their mindsets about money, and how agreeable are you to those mindsets. How do you spend money? Think about how you plan on spending stimulus checks if you're eligible for the stimulus check. Think about what you would do. What's the first thing you would do if you were to wake up a millionaire tomorrow? Think about, what does legacy look like? Do you want to leave money behind for family members, particularly your children or younger descendants? I think all of those will kind of help give you kind of a compass around where your mindset is, right? Like, are you thinking about going out and buying a new pair of shoes, or are you thinking about investing in the stock market? Are you thinking about how to grow your money, or are you embracing consumerism, which is a very popular cultural norm in this country?
Mm-hmm. For sure. So you're looking at inwardly in that introspection, asking, where is my value system? What's important to me? Is it to have, you brought up the word legacy. For some people, they're just trying to understand how to kind of like make ends meet. Legacy is like way, way beyond, far away from reach. They're just trying to figure out for how they're going to survive, let alone leaving something more for their children, grandchildren, and generations. Because when we say legacy, that's what we're talking about. And so mindset, it all starts there, at evaluating what are your values, what's important to me, and then pay attention. Well, do my actions match up to my values? Like, let me take a look around. It's that awareness. And it is, like you said, Rahkim, our culture, we're always seeing a new commercial about something we should be buying, right? And so sometimes we need to take a step back and realize, well, that's really good marketing, but that doesn't align with my life. I don't need to buy that, although I'm feeling like I want to because that commercial was really great, but it's not aligning with my values, which is to live a better life for myself and my family, those that are coming after me.
I would also add that servitude plays a big part in like the mindset shift, right? When you have access to wealth, how do you benefit others? How do you benefit those around you? As we look at, some of the richest people in the world, right? Like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, what are they doing? They're providing a service for somebody else. They're trying to literally change the world and change the way that we live in the world. So, having access to wealth, and so not just money and, nice to have, being able to live comfortably, but having access to wealth allows for you to be a more perfect you. Allows for you to live in your purpose without having to make decisions out of need or survival. And in that way, I think we can arrive to like our greater selves, right? Because we get to just live life limitless. And so I think that's the mindset shift, right? Like, living in servitude to other people.
Wow, that was a great reflection. And servitude does correlate with the need for wealth. If you want to serve an underserved population, if you have, some social justice thing that's so important, and that's your value system, how the heck are you going to help? When you're watching the commercials and buying everything that they're showing you that there is to buy, that's not really aligning with what's truly important. So recognizing, stepping back, check out your mindset and see, are my actions aligning with all of that? So that's awesome. So let's assume now people have their mindset right. They're like, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to be shifting my mindsets right now. What would be some important first steps for money strategies to help people to start getting prepared, especially leaving 2020, 2021? We're excited about the new year. We have a lot of control still over what's going on, but times are still uncertain. Let's just be honest. 2021. That's why we're here. We're trying to learn so we can level up our personal finances our knowledge in different areas. So how would you say, what would you say to somebody if they really want to make changes? Where's the first place to start then when they're starting to get serious about getting their money game right?
I would say finding out what you don't know, right? That's a big part of it. You don't know what you don't know, and so you can spin your wheels forever, really, trying to figure out, well, what's next. That looks different. When I did my TED Talk, my call to action at the end of that talk was to build a team. And so that looks like finding somebody who's experienced or who knows maybe something that you don't know financially, and teaming up with them, leveraging them as a resource. So you're aligning yourself with other financial professionals, whether they are real estate agents or CPAs or lenders, but also taking the knowledge that you do have and sharing it with someone else. One of the things that I've learned in this space is that you don't truly understand something until you can teach it to somebody else. And so by being able to share what it is that you know, it reinforces that belief system, that mindset that we're talking about. And so you start to inspect the holes in your process, or you get some diversity of thought. You might have someone ask you a question like, why do you do it that way? And when you start to answer that question, your articulation might kind of ring an alarm in your head and say, you know what, maybe I could be doing this a better way. But outside of finding out what you don't know by partnering with other people, certainly there's other resources. Again, the education piece is important. So, you know, maybe you do a deeper dive into the types of books that you read or the courses that you purchase, or maybe you work with a coach. I think those things will all help cover the blind spots that maybe we either choose or by circumstance tend to ignore because we don't have the experience or the exposure to the different strategies, practices, or products that exist out there.
I love that answer. That's really smart because we don't know what we don't know, like basically is what you're saying. So when we start acquiring a team around us, and they might not be much ahead of you, but guess what? They might fill in the gap of what you were missing on that topic. Let's say it was about taxes, or you were saying, you know, get people like advisors or accountants or whoever around you. Then you start realizing, and then they'll challenge you. They'll sound like more like mentors or even coaches when there's room for you to improve. And so that's the way to go. That's like the fastest way to get started on doing something better. Money strategies is to kind of get a team around you. And then on that note is pay attention to the team. Like, who are you asking to be around you? Because some people do have a bias, you know, especially if they're going to be selling these investment products or services.
Absolutely.
They could have a bias. So you just want to pay attention. Like, who's giving me this information? Why are they giving me this information? Because you're really trying to figure out, is there a potential bias? And so with that said, I totally 100% love what you said. And I wanted to tell you that there were a couple of comments that came in. I don't know if you got to see them, but
I didn't.
Okay, so yeah, when I asked about, you know, what are you learning? What is there anything that, you know, you want to celebrate? Somebody said, you are deserving of wealth. It starts with your mindset. And then Felicia has a question. Where would one start to implement a plan to create a legacy and or generational wealth?
So there's a couple of answers. I think going back to the idea of creating a team, you want to look at that legacy wealth building package includes estate planning. So you might reach out to an estate attorney. You might reach out to an attorney who can create a trust for you, understanding how assets are passed down and what part of those assets are exposed. So for instance, if you have assets outside of a trust, you might have the beneficiaries of those assets pay tremendous amounts of taxes in order to claim those. So how do you avoid those taxes? You might put it in a trust, and then it's as simple as, you know, naming new trustees. So there's definitely, and I'm not an attorney, so I cannot give specific legal advice, but there are definitely strategies that are used to pass down wealth, whether that be through entities like trusts or even businesses. If you establish a business and you have kind of your relatives who you leave behind as members of that business, well, they can pick up where you left off. And then there's combinations of both. I've certainly seen trust-owned LLCs or other entities, corporations. I've seen the reverse be true as well.
Awesome. Um, as far as like estate planning and all that stuff, some people think, well, that's not for me. I don't earn much income. I don't need a will. I don't, those kinds of things. What would you say to somebody like that about?
I think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions, and it leaves behind a huge headache for those who have to, really settle your estate, right? I've seen horror stories occur with probate and feuding family members over what assets look like, because in their mind, it's a significant sum, but to others, it's pennies. I think everybody should, at the very least, have a will, but a will is not going to cover everything. And so the next level up is to really establish a trust, because a will is going to direct your assets, but still leave exposure in terms of how those assets are divided, how those assets are taxed, who gets what. And then a trust really creates the vehicle for these items to be moved. So trusts are a little bit more expensive, certainly a little bit more complicated structures, but at the very least, I think everybody should have a will. I think everybody should have a life insurance policy. So even if it's an individual who, I don't have a huge income, I don't have a huge amount of assets that I'm going to leave behind, well, that life insurance policy is an asset that you can leave behind to support your family, and possibly a wealth building tool for the future generations.
Yeah, so I completely agree with you. At a minimum, even if you think you're dirt broke, you don't have kids, you don't have a spouse, I don't need a will. I would ask you, do you have anything of like emotional, sentimental value that you want to be taken care of when you die? Like, that's when you really start thinking about wills in a different way, because it could be that beat up little bike that you take on the trails and the hiking trails and stuff, and that's such a big part of your life. That's your identity, that you would want somebody who gets that, who would know how valuable that was to you, that represented part of you, to have that. And that's what a will would do, because basically, if you don't have money, that's not the only thing the will is addressing, but it's addressing any sentimental values that you want to have control of. You want to have the say of how those are being distributed after you're gone. So I definitely 100% agree that everybody should have a will. And actually, they're not all that expensive nowadays with all these services like LegalZoom and those kinds of things. People can go on there for pretty cheap and fill in, the blanks and get that done. But so that's awesome. So can we ask you, like, what kinds of money strategies do you implement in your life to start creating some wealth and a legacy for you?
Sure. And I came on at the tail end of the previous speaker, so I'm going to jump ahead and kind of talk about my gift as well, because it aligns. I am huge on mindset, as you guys probably realize. And so a big part of my money strategy is visualization and this idea of manifestation, right? So I'm claiming it in advance. I'm saying that this is what I want to bring into my reality. And so in order to make that work, you have to first be self-aware, right? You're desirous of this particular outcome. And then you have to put a plan in place. So for me, at the beginning and end of every year, I'm writing down what my goals are, not just specific to money, but what my goals are as it relates to just the entire worldview of my life. What are my spiritual goals? What are my physical goals? What project goals do I have? And of course, what financial goals do I have? And I like to dream big, right? Like I have goals that are sometimes uncomfortably big, and it's okay if I don't reach those goals, because if I'm working towards the accomplishment of that goal, maybe 50% of that goal is realized, maybe 25% of that goal is realized, but I'm actively working towards the accomplishment of that goal. So my gift is a PDF. It's actually a small segment of a book that I'm actually working on, a workbook that I'm working on right now, called Unlocking Financial Empowerment. And so there's a few exercises in there that that speak to that practice. Also, I'm a huge believer in this idea of paying yourself first. So that's a strategy that I have a non-negotiable discipline around. Every single time I get paid, I take a portion of that income and I put it to the side for me for long-term wealth building. And the vehicle that I typically use to carry those funds is my Roth IRA. So I'm long-term planning, right? Like I'm planning for way later. Outside of that, I think multiple streams of income is something that a lot of people are realizing is not a luxury, but it's a necessity these days. And so I am constantly trying to figure out ways to generate some kind of income, whether it's a little ripple or, you know, full on stream. And so it's very easy to do that these days with, you know, ease of access and creating books or ebooks, creating courses, you know, monetizing a skill set or some knowledge that you have in the form of something that can live on beyond you or that can be sold in a way that you don't have to actively push it. And so I live what I, or I what's the term? I live what I preach, or you know, do what I advise other people to do. So I have 2 books out there that I'm constantly pushing, working on creating courses, working on creating more books, doing consulting, doing coaching. So I'm trying to find all the ways to generate income and also to protect my income by investing in assets.
Awesome. I think that's such a huge, good tip, guys. In this economy, we've learned a lot, right? And so what we can do is take some of these tips, like Rahkim's talking about multiple streams of income, and that can be something that you already have as a skill that you can put it in a book or something like that. And what I like about that is that, like Rahkim says, you're not actively having to like work for that income. That's why it's called passive income. And you just develop it once, you put the energy and hard work once, and then you can park it somewhere, like on, for example, on Amazon, where Rahkim has some of his first book already. And then people can find it and they vibe with the title. Can you tell us the title of that book?
Yeah, my most recent book is Financially Irresponsible.
Financially Irresponsible. And so you're like, what? I want to read this book, right? And so, I mean, and Rahkim really just had to work real hard at it for that specific time, but that's what you can do. You can work on creating these things that you can passively continue to receive income from. And it helps with that, the factor of having multi streams of income, because if, you know, one thing doesn't work out, like COVID, millions of people got laid off of their work, their jobs. There's still something else that's kind of pulling a little bit in. And so that's awesome. Let's see. I was going to ask you, ask you, because on your Instagram account, and I know it's going to go back to a previous point you've made about manifesting and things like that, but you planted some rolled up money in a plant pot. I like me some plants, like I have my plants, right? But you did something different. You put a little bit of money in the soil of your plant. Can you talk to us about what that's about?
Absolutely. So I believe that symbolism is very powerful in active manifesting, right? So I have a plant that is my favorite plant. I'm a plant dad to multiple plants, but I have a plant that is my favorite plant. It was gifted to me as a cutting, and it has blossomed into a very full, very healthy plant. I water it every day. I talk to it. I mean, it's like I said, it's my favorite plant. Anytime there's a new leaf, I like do a little celebration.
Oh.
And so because that plant is like an object of attention, right? Like I'm giving it attention all the time. I thought putting money, planting money, I also garden in the summer, planting money symbolically is me kind of like declaring to the universe that I am planting the seeds now to reap a larger harvest later. And so it might seem silly to some people. Of course, money doesn't grow on trees. I don't expect that it was a $2 bill. The $2 bill is going to sprout up with little baby $2 bills, but it was the activity, because your brain is understanding the symbolism in ways that, you know, the rational parts of your brain is not. So when you do things like that, or you talk about what it is that you will accomplish, using very affirmative language in the future tense or in the present progressive tense, it starts to set your brain up for ways to make those things happen. And now your brain in the background is looking for all of those opportunities that maybe you would have been closed off to if your mind was closed to opportunity, to grow wealth, to find wealth, to execute on, you know, those little passive meetings that you might have where, you know, you could have had $1 million opportunity at dinner, but you bypassed that because your mind wasn't on the opportunity. Your mind was on the food, or your mind was on whatever else is preoccupying you. So yes, that was something that I wanted to share with my audience. It got a lot of engagement. Again, I think a lot of people kind of looked at it like, what? This guy is a little crazy. Why is he putting money in the dirt? But I wanted to illustrate that point because I think it's so powerful.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And actually, all the speakers here have said something around the money mindset and manifesting, really declaring what it is you want. And that symbolism, yes, it does. Your brain doesn't really get too specific about, is this something you want, or is this something you already have? If you have it on your mind, the brain kind of, you can trick the brain into believing and giving that to you. You will do it because you're creating these new pathways in your brain. And so that's really good. I love the symbolism. I get it. You don't think you're going to grow from it, but if you can capture like what he's trying to say is that symbolism, planting, growing, working, I think is so cool. So since we brought up the book, Financially Responsible, can you give us a little like, what's the gist of the book? Can you give us a little golden nuggets that you dropped in there?
Sure. You know, true to the theme, right, of money mindset, I break the book into two different parts. Part one is focusing on your spiritual and mental relationship with money. So I actually open up with my first chapter titled "Money is Not the Root of All Evil," because people often misquote biblical texts and saying, you know, money is the root of all evil, when that's not even, you know, that's not even in the Bible. That's not what's said. So I start to challenge people to inspect their beliefs, particularly their limiting beliefs around deserving money, around acquiring money to eliminate the guilt associated with that desire. And then I use examples from my experience up until the point of my writing the book, throughout, whether it's on the topic of credit or investing or eliminating debt or planning for retirement. The second part of my book is a little bit more strategy-based, hands-on, again, talking through the lens of my experience. But there's a couple of themes that I'm really adamant about underscoring in the text. First off is that personal finance is indeed personal. So everybody's strategy or approach to managing their money certainly will be different, and that's okay. Second is that I am not giving anybody advice in the text. I'm talking about strategies that I like, strategies that I've used. I make reference to different texts that I've read. Was a huge Robert Kiyosaki fan. As I mentioned, Rich Dad, Poor Dad was kind of like what jump-started my journey. But I also include the snowball debt elimination strategy from Dave Ramsey in the text. I talk about Grant Cardone and, how he is so huge on this idea of leverage. And I heard the previous speaker talking about investing in real estate with using credit cards. I think that's so huge. I actually put the down payment for my my residence on a credit card by using a balance transfer. So definitely a strategy that's used out there. And of course, you have to use these strategies doing your due diligence and determining what is your risk tolerance for those things. But ultimately, the purpose of the book is to challenge people to inspect what is the status quo, or what are traditionalist views as it relates to managing your money. And do you embrace those, or do you challenge those? Or you try new things? Because there are multiple ways to skin a cat in this game.
That's powerful. That's deep. Do you question those? How are you going to question them without having that foundational knowledge base, that basic education that we didn't get in school, which is why, we are money coaches now, financial coaches, because we saw the need. We need this essential life skill, but yet we learned about history, math, English, where to put the comma, where to put the, the paragraph indentation, but we didn't learn about how to manage money. And so having that foundational knowledge, and then, yes, you can start kind of questioning, well, Dave Ramsey says cash is king, pay off all your credit cards, debt is the devil, cut them up and be done with it. But then you have a foundational knowledge. So now you have somewhere for you to say, okay, that's one idea. What's the next idea? And they might talk to somebody else, and the next person's like, oh man, credit's like the best thing. You can leverage it. You can do, businesses and houses on somebody else's money. You just pay them back with a little bit of interest. So there's so many perspectives and so many angles. And like you said, it's personal. So what works for that person, and that person might not necessarily work for you, because it's for your own purposes and the way it fits your lifestyle and your value system and all the other things. So I agree, definitely, 100%. So are you a big kind of, I think you mentioned you like IRAs.
Oh, I love the IRA.
Yeah,
I love the Roth IRA in particular.
Roth IRA. Okay. Well, tell us what that is.
Sure. So, there's two different types of IRAs in I guess the financial world, right? There's your traditional pre-tax contribution IRA, where all of your contributions are pre-tax. This is good for people with high incomes, or who are looking to basically show a lower tax liability based off of that income. The drawback, in my opinion, to a traditional IRA is that once you go to pull the money out at retirement age, you have to pay taxes on that money. Whereas the Roth IRA is post-tax. So you can contribute to a Roth IRA up to a certain income threshold. And then there's a way to contribute to it beyond that. It's called backdoor Roth, where basically you're contributing to your traditional, and then you're converting that portion of the contributions to taxable and putting it into your Roth. But the benefit of the Roth is the growth potential. So a lot of young people are advised to start investing in a Roth because once they get to retirement age and they start pulling the money out, they've already paid taxes on it. So they're not having to pay taxes on any of the growth realized. Some people in the world of the stock market have gotten really rich off of Tesla stock, as an example. Investing in Tesla when it was so much less than what it is now. I remember there was a time Tesla was in the $30 to $60 range, and now Tesla is trending up at $800 a share. So you can imagine over that period of time, there's been significant growth in that company. If those individuals invested in a Roth IRA, all of that growth is now non-taxable. So when they go to pull that money out and liquidate, they can liquidate now, or they can choose to keep it within the security. And then once they're eligible to pull it out of the Roth, they can, but they're not paying taxes on any of that money. It's like a huge, like, I don't want to say tax shelter, but tax advantaged vehicle for investment growth.
That's exactly right. And that's a really good term for those of you who are thinking, yeah, I want to start investing. I need to start doing this and being prepared. And you're thinking about investments. That's a really good place to start. Is with these tax advantaged accounts. And we, could get into some of it, but not all of it today. And you can just Google, what are tax advantaged accounts? What does that mean? But in a nutshell, Rahkim pretty much said it, is that you get to put money in an account. You either pay taxes up front, which is called the Roth, or you pay taxes at the end when you go to withdraw the money, which is called traditional. But either way, you're paying your taxes, and then the money that grows in there is just growing without further taxes. That's what that means, tax advantage. There are other investments out there where they don't have those protections. So if you already have a retirement plan at work, like a 401k, a 403b, those are tax advantage accounts. So that would be a really, really good place to start. However, those funds are going to be for your retirement, because then they have all these rules, like you can't withdraw until you're 59 and a half or older. So just, I think the theme today, Rahkim, is just educate yourself. There's so much information out there. Find yourself a good coach. Pay attention if you are getting information from bloggers or, anybody. Listen to, is there a potential bias here? Are they selling products and services? And then just kind of get more informed. But let's say you don't have a savings account. Would it be a good idea to go ahead and start investing? What's your opinion on that?
I have mixed feelings, and I talk about it in my book, actually. So personal story, I pivoted my strategy, which is absolutely okay because personal finance is personal, in 2020 to include saving. So I had a savings account, but I was not using the savings account because I put everything I had into investments. And then we realized COVID. And so my security blanket was kind of snatched off of me. And I realized that if I needed access to these funds that I've been working hard to put away, I would have to wait. I would have to wait until I was able to liquidate it. I would have to wait until I was able to transfer it into my account. And maybe I didn't have the time to wait. So I realized the importance of having, at minimum, an emergency fund. But up until that point, I didn't have risk, right? Like, I am single, I don't have any children. I own a home, but all of those things were basically covered and accounted for. So I'm not counting on an emergency situation to occur. And I have rather large credit limits. So if there was a split-second decision that I needed to make, I could at least use that as a buffer before having to go in and liquidate. Today, I realize the value of having access to that money a little bit more quickly. And so I'm strategic. I still invest every single time I get money, but I'm also careful to save a little bit on the side so that I can have an emergency fund. So I'd say, definitely don't park your life savings in a savings account because you're not earning a lot in interest. The rate of inflation is certainly going to outpace what you're earning in interest, but it's important to definitely have access to capital, whether you keep that on hand in a safe or you keep that in some kind of bank product like a savings account.
All right. Awesome. So I'm going to ask the audience, what's your key takeaway up to this point that you are like excited to share with somebody in your friend group, your family group, your church group? You just feel like, oh, I wish they were here because they would have heard this. What is that? Put it in the comments so we could tell Rahkim. But one comment that came in earlier, I'm not sure if you saw it, but open your mind to the opportunity to grow wealth. That was a comment that came in.
Absolutely.
It's about mindset. I'm telling you, everybody's said it, no matter if they were a goal expert, a networking expert, everybody has talked about mindset. And so, okay, we're waiting for the comments to come in. So, okay, so let's go back and talk about the investing. Okay, there's different ways to invest. Tax advantage accounts, we know that's like the first thing that we should do. Your workplace plan is a tax advantage account. But
Definitely.
if you are looking at something else, like you're investing for retirement in your 401k, but since you want to be investing for money that you might need, let's say 5-10 years from now. So it's not really retirement, but you want to save for some other goal. Maybe it's to start a business, down payment for a house, what have you. And putting it in a regular savings account is probably not the best idea because you have an emergency fund, right, for the immediate needs in a regular savings account, but something where you can earn a little bit more money. Would that be an IRA? And if it's an IRA, where do you find these IRAs? Do you find them like, there's robo investing apps nowadays? Like where's a good place to find a really good IRA?
So my IRAs are with large traditional brokers. Primarily I use Merrill Edge, but there's Fidelity, there's TD Ameritrade. Actually, I believe Schwab bought out TD Ameritrade, so I think there's a conversion happening there. But I would say definitely go with the larger institutional brokerages. The reason why, and I do have Robinhood, so I use the apps, but I don't use it seriously because there are frequent issues around people accessing their money, around the system overloading, and you can't execute on a trade immediately. There's too many issues for comfort. So I think one of those investing platforms that are through your phone is definitely a good starting point, but certainly not where you want to park large sums of money that you're looking to realize a huge gain on later. Even if I were to grow the money that I have in those accounts, I would eventually look to moving those into a different kind of account. So yeah, I would use a non-retirement brokerage account. I would caution people to be aware too of the fact that, if there is growth and you sell, you're paying capital gains taxes on that growth. And so just being okay with and prepared for those tax implications it's just something to be aware of, right? It should not be a deterring factor or what you make your decision based off of. But there are ways to invest in products that are non-traditional products. I recently this year started investing in silver. So I started buying actual physical silver. So a lot of people investing in precious metals, gold, silver. just some of the more expensive ones like platinum. There are people who invest in art. There are people who invest in antiques or collectibles. Basically anything that's going to appreciate in value over time that they can then, you know, whether it's easy or not easy, liquidate for a profit is on the table. We're seeing today the rise of cryptocurrency as being like really popular means for investing, and you know, it's such a volatile market that it's not something that I advise people to do, but it's definitely something that I advise people to be aware of. I am invested in cryptocurrency to the extent that I was able to basically double my principal, and then I pulled my principal out. So whatever's left in there is just whatever's left in there. But you see people like screaming Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. And you know, I think Bitcoin is reeling backwards now. Maybe the bubble burst, or you know, maybe it's just the fluctuation in the market. But Bitcoin got very, very high up. I think it came close to $40,000 a coin, and dropped down to where is it now? Like 30,000. And I remember seeing Bitcoin as low as 3,000 a coin. So it's like I said, a very volatile market. It's not considered a security by the SEC, but it is taxed. So the IRS definitely has.
Ain't that funny? It's like they don't recognize it until they want to get a little piece of it, and they recognize
IRS
it.
Definitely has you know, code in there with redeeming, you know, your profits from cryptocurrency. So it's just too volatile for me to feel really comfortable throwing a huge ton of money into. You could see, I mean, I've seen people become millionaires off of cryptocurrency, and you know, there's people who they believe the hype so much that they're mortgaging their houses, they're taking, you know, balance transfers with their credit card so that they can invest, and then when the bubble bursts and they can't recover in enough time, now they're in financial ruin. So all of those decisions should be done with due diligence, and you know, with a real internal look on what is your risk tolerance, but also it should not be money that you are going to be needing in the immediate future.
Exactly right, because investing, we have to remember it's a risk, and so we can't count on that money to be there. And so investing really is taking a risk that whatever asset you're buying, whether it's gold, silver, a house, a stock, it's going to increase in value over time. And so we're talking about, you know, big chunks of time for that magic to happen of investing in an asset, for that to actually appreciate. And sometimes, you know, the stock market, it goes down, it goes up, and it does its thing, but you don't want to be investing for like a savings account. Like you just want to have a savings account in case, you know, get laid off of work or something, because a savings account is for that purpose. You don't make much money off a savings account, but it has its purpose. You'll have your money very, very safe and liquid. You can have access to it, turn it into hard cash money in your hand fast, right? You just put the debit card in the machine, it spits out the green money. But with an investment, not so liquid, like Rahkim was saying, and he was worried about, well, if I need that money, I have to liquidate it, meaning you just have to sell it to turn that asset into hard cash money. That takes time. And what if it was actually in a downturn? So you want the you know, investing serves its purpose, I would say, for long-term goals, from 5 years and beyond. That's what I define as longer term.
Definitely.
And so that's awesome. So we only have 5 minutes left. Could you believe our time flew by like that?
It really did fly by.
Well, it's been a pleasure to have you, but I don't want to miss the opportunity for you to tell the audience, where can they find you? What's your favorite place for people to find you, connect with you, and learn more about what you do? And then the next thing is, tell us about the free gift that you're giving. Oh, you already teased us.
I spilled the beans a little bit, but I
You
can
did,
reiterate it.
But tell us again. Tell us again.
So my favorite place for people to find me is Instagram. I am very responsive there, but I am active on all social media. My handles are consistent across. It's just my name, Rahkim Sabree, no space. And I do have a website that is also my name, so it's 𝙗𝙗𝙗𝙗.com. From there, you can find pretty much anything and everything that you need to find about me. My free gift, again, is a PDF. It has several activities. One of the activities is a 30-day saving activity. So I think that that's very important. But there's also some symbolism there, an activity around using your imagination, using your mind, changing your mindset so that you can manifest wealth in your future. So I hope you guys enjoy it.
Thank you so much, Rahkim. We're going to drop that in the chat right now. It was awesome having you. Yeah, so you're welcome to hang out with us a little bit more. But I look forward to continuing to see what awesome things you're going to be doing in the personal finance coaching space. And thanks again for being here.